All right, so what I'm going to show you is how to go about creating a site analysis. Okay, we could actually use this strategy to create a site plan. Um, but we're also going to use this to, more importantly, kind of for the assignment, create a site analysis. Now, site analysis is just what it says. We're going to analyze the area around our site, right? So our site is 1222 Broadway in Santa Monica on the corner of Broadway and Euclid. Okay. Right now it is a vacant lot, and this is where our project is going to be for, sorry, this is the site for our upcoming project. Okay. Um, so I'm going to walk you through these steps, and we're going to start off by getting a 3D model of the site. And we're going to go to CAD Mapper. Okay, so cadmapper.com. You do have to create an account. The account is free, and I recommend using your .edu email. You do get free downloads up to a certain file size, and then afterwards they do charge you. Now for this assignment and for what we're doing, it should fall within the free range, so that's not an issue. But in the future, you might need something larger or you might max out, and so a .edu gives you the student discounted price on downloads. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come over here. Now we're going to need to have both CAD Mapper and Google Maps open at the same time, just because we're going to be toggling back and forth. So I'm going to come over here and actually let's come here and copy the address. We're going to go into CAD Mapper, and in the search box, we're going to paste that address and just hit enter. And we're going to go to Santa Monica, really. It doesn't actually, I forgot, it doesn't actually give you the correct address. So I'm going to left click and move the mouse. So this is where having both maps open at the same time is helpful. So I'm right now looking like for Colorado and Euclid, or like Colorado 14th, in between Colorado and Santa Monica. So that's what I'm looking for. So there's Colorado, there's Santa Monica, there's there we go. There's Euclid and Broadway. Okay. I could use the wheel on my mouse to zoom in and zoom out. And what I'm looking for really is, this is the Broad stage. It's the Broad stage, so which is a theater. And then this is a park. I can't remember, Memorial Park, I think is what it's called. Yeah, Memorial Park. So I want to be able to get Memorial Park and the Broad stage. That's going to be like the extent. Okay. And then, as you know, from there, I want to try to get kind of a square. Now I'm going to download it and I'm going to create a window. And it's just a single click. And I'm going to go around just like this. Okay. So then from here, with that area selected, so again, from road stage to the park, we're going to hit create file. Okay. Sorry, before we do that, we want to make sure that Rhino 5 is selected. Even though we're going to be using Rhino 8, Rhino 7, whichever one you have, it just means that it's going to save the file as a Rhino 5 file, and that's not going to be an issue. We also want to make sure that we select 3D buildings. Okay. And then the outlines for road geometry, we want to set it to outlines. And then I just leave all this as the default settings. Okay. Now there is one thing here that you'll notice, that it says 8M. So that's 8 meters. That means that our file is going to be downloaded as meters. So we're going to have to change that once we get into Rhino. So we're going to go ahead and hit create file. And then we're going to give it a minute. There we go. And there is our 3D model, right, of the site. I'm going to go ahead and download it. And it's going to download as a zip file. And then I'm going to go ahead and you might have to extract the, let me go ahead and share my screen. If you never dealt with zip files, we just right click and we go to extract, extract all. And there is the new folder right in here. And then I'll just go ahead and open this up. Okay. And then we're going to go into Rhino. And it's still loading. Okay, there we go. So here is our file. I'm going to come over here to shaded view. And there we have it, right? So the first thing I always want to do is figure out where is my site, because you'll notice that there are no street names. Now, the way we figure out our site is by really just trying to find weird shaped buildings like this, and then trying to find them on our on Google Maps, right? We do know that our site is somewhere in the middle because that's where we took the screenshot, right? So it's somewhere in here. Given that there's this big empty space right at the center, my guess is that that is probably our site right there. But I'm still gonna go in and see like, okay, I'm looking for this like U-shaped building, kind of looks like legs, or this box with a void at the center. So let's go back to Google Maps. And where's our site? Here's our site. Sure enough, look at that. There's our U, there's that box right there. So yeah, that is our site. So let's go ahead and go back to Rhino. All right, so now we understand where, or now we know where our site is. Okay. Just an FYI, if we were trying to just do a two-dimensional site plan, then we can just go into the top view and we have a two-dimensional site plan, right? And there's our building. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do after locating the site is figure out our units. So I'm going to type in units. And it's, of course, it's set to meters. So let's go ahead and change this to feet. We're going to change the distance display to feet and inches, and we'll hit OK. It's going to say, do we want to adjust the scale, right? So we have to multiply everything by 3.28, all that. So we'll hit yes. There we go. Now, every time we do this, it still gets the scale wrong. So what we need to do is measure our site. Let's go in here and figure out exactly, we need to figure out exactly, or we need to figure out the exact scale and the dimensions. So given that this is our site, if I use the distance command, I go from there to there, it's telling me it's 26 feet. 26 feet seems narrow, like really narrow for a two-way street. So let's go back to Google Maps. Okay. Now Google Maps does have this cool little measuring tape. If we come in here, okay, so right down here where it says layers, if we go and click on more, now I still want satellite. If we click on more, under map tools, we have measure. So I'll go ahead and click here, and it's saying click on the map to trace a path you want to measure. Now I'm just going to take general numbers, right? It doesn't have to be exact, but I'm going to measure this length or the width of this street. So I'm going to click somewhere where it looks like it's a sidewalk from, say, there to there. You want to try to go perpendicular. So obviously we're just eyeballing, and this is just an estimate. But this right here tells me it's 55.7 feet, okay? I like to round to the nearest foot, sometimes to the nearest 5-foot markers, depending on what it is I'm measuring. So 55 feet seems like a good number. So let's go ahead and click on the X right here. And let's go back to Rhino. Okay. I'm going to zoom out. So it's saying that this is actually 55 feet, not 26 feet. So I'm going to zoom out, do a cross window run the entire thing, zoom in, and then use the scale command. So I type in scale, enter, and I'm going to click on this corner, click on this corner, okay? And that allows us to scale, right? So now it's going to ask us how much do we want to scale by? So essentially what I'm saying is from this point to this point, I want it to be 55 feet. So I'm going to move my cursor just out so that it implies that it's going bigger. But I want to go along the parallel or kind of along this line. Watch if I move my cursor, it starts to like, we start to get, I guess it still kind of moves around the same size. All right, we'll just move out and we'll type in 55 feet. Enter. Okay. And now we want to actually check our work. So I'm going to type in distance and I'm going to click here to there. And it tells me it's 55 feet. Okay. So if you're getting 55 feet when you use the distance tool from this corner to that corner, then you did the scaling correct. All right. Well, now we need to figure out our actual property. Okay, where is our property line? Now, interestingly enough, most cities do not have the drawings, accurate drawings of property lines. If you ever want to get the property line for your property, you have to hire a surveyor who will go in and measure and survey your site, and they will give you the exact property lines, right? So some cities have a really good database, and they give you general numbers. So even even good databases gives you general numbers, but most of the time you need to hire a surveyor who's going to give you the property line. Obviously, we're not going to do that for this class and for this assignment. So we're going to stick to just rough estimates. We're going to get those numbers from Google Maps. So let's go back to Google Map. And I'm going to use my measure tool again. And I'm going to measure the sidewalk. So from here to there is 12.5 feet. So let's call that 13 feet, right? So this is 13 feet. We're going to say that this is 13 feet. And the property looks like it's going straight to the alley, okay? So let's go back to Rhino. I'm going to take this line, I'm going to offset this 13 feet. Right? I'm going to take the line and explode it, and then delete this line because I want to extend this line. Oops. Extend there, click, enter, there we go. Right, so I'm extending this line down. So now we have these two property lines, right? Actually, we have this third property line. Now we need to figure out where does this property go. And what I'm going to do for that is measure off this side of the building. So let's go back to Google Maps and right here. Oops. So let's click on, we have to clear the measure, right? Because right now it's going to want to continue measuring. So we hit the X to clear it. Then I'm going to click on measure again. And I'm just going to go from here to there. And 7.5, so let's go 8 feet. That seems correct, actually. So let's go back. Okay, I'm going to draw a line right there. And then I'm going to offset that line 8 feet. So now let's go ahead and delete this. I'll use the fillet tool, set the radius to 0, and click on this line, click on this line, and then I'll hit the extend command and extend that line. right? And then what I'll do is create a new layer and just call this property without the capitals. Nope. I'm gonna go ahead and join these lines. And as a matter of fact, let's actually just trim this lines right there so that I can create a new one and it'll be one complete square. Okay. I'll go ahead and take this and change this to my property line. And let's just change the color so that we know where it is. Okay. And then from there, I'm actually going to give it a surface, just like that. Okay. So now at any point, I know where, actually, you know, let's go and put in property. Now I know where my property is. Okay. Save your file. But now what we're going to do is create a kind of an axonometric drawing, like a 45 bird's eye view of our site with the buildings. Okay. Now, we also want to make sure that north is always up. Okay. We don't want to rotate the building this way because this becomes misleading. So in that case, we know that there's the road, there's the park, and that means that this is north. So we want to go at an angle from a bird's eye, always with north being at the top. So we're going to go either this angle or this angle. Okay. And this part is entirely up to you, however you want to choose, however you choose to show your site. Okay. I actually prefer this because I think this is the freeway. I think this is the 10 freeway, and that's kind of important. Is it? No, that's Colorado, right? I'm tripping. Yeah, that's Colorado. The freeway is on the other side of the park. So this is the freeway over here. So maybe I want to make sure to get that in my view, right? I actually like this view, something like that. So I'm going to select the whole thing, get the view. You know what? I take that back. Before we do that, let's set the view. So we're going to go up to File, Set View, and we're going to go to Named View. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this, it doesn't matter, Aerial. Okay. This way, if I ever have to go back to it, right? If I make a mistake or something happens where I have to go back to the original view, I can just go up to Set View, to Aerial, and I'm set. Okay. So now I'll select the entire model, holding just type hold Control A to select all. And I'm going to type in make 2D. And I do not want hidden lines. Let's go ahead and group the output. I want the projection of the view and properties from input objects. Sure. Okay, so these are the settings that I'm using. We'll hit OK. Give it a minute to do its thing. And now we have a drawing. So let's go ahead and move this up. And now let's go to the top view. So now we have a two-dimensional 2D line drawing, right? This is two-dimensional, right? It's flat, but it's a two-dimensional line drawing of a three-dimensional area view, okay? Now, the goal here that we're going to do, that we're going for, is we're going to take this now into Illustrator so that we could add colors to these buildings, okay? essentially we're going to take this and we're going to paint and we're going to color every little building inside of here. We're essentially going to color almost everything. Okay. Now, in order to color things in Illustrator, we need closed surfaces, sorry, closed lines, right? So we need to make sure that if we want to color inside here, that there are no openings. So what you want to do is take a minute and really look at the drawing and see, do I have all of the lines? Does it all look good? Obviously, it's going to take you way too long to do every single one, right? Or to go and investigate every single line. Um, but you want to just do like a quick overview, right? Now, here's the thing, especially when we get to the ends, you see this right here, how it's open? That means that this whole street, I will not be able to add a color to. So that means essentially from here, 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 all of this, I can't add a color to because it's open. So especially along the perimeters, what I always do is just come in with a line and I go from endpoint to endpoint to endpoint. Do not do like one big one because it could be that this little line here is slightly higher and it's not going to grab it, right? So take the time. I'll even go over some lines and just go line by line by line by line. Right. I will skip where there is a line. I'll go ahead and skip those. I mean, I'll still draw a line over them, but I won't go endpoint, 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 endpoint. So I'll just go all the way across here, from here. Right, because I want to be able to close all of this or be able to color all of this stuff in. And then I'll just leave it at that. And we can do the same thing over here. All of this seems closed off. Now the question is, do I want to be able to paint this area in here? Right. And so that's your call. That essentially means that all of the areas on the outside will not get colored. So maybe we do. Right. So maybe we do draw a line. Let's go from here to there, to there. And this one I'm less worried about. So you're going to spend the time and close everything off. Okay. But let's say we spent the time and we closed everything off. Oh, also come in and check your lines. So sometimes when we do make 2D, we have lines that kind of don't make any sense that begin to overlap. And that's just because Rhino has a hard time dealing with all of the geometry all at once. And so you will sometimes get like things like this, right? Things like this. And because it's farther away from our site, it maybe doesn't matter. But if you want to clean it up, you can. So I can trim this and say, you know what, let's go there and trim that and trim that. Right. We use the trim command, enter, select everything, enter, and then start clicking the parts that you want to delete. Right. So clean it all up. If there's certain things that you want to add that maybe aren't there. Let's say you see something and it's, hey, it's really important that, I don't know, or, you know, it's really important that there is something here, or I don't know, if there's lines that are missing and you want to draw a line. So this is the opportunity to treat this like a drawing, to add whatever line work you need to add, to delete, to clean up whatever it is you need to clean up. Okay. But once you're done, we'll go ahead and save the work. Hit save. Okay. Once you're done, we're going to go ahead and select our drawing. And we're going to go up to File, Export Selected. And then name this Site Analysis. right? And I'll even type in Rhino just to, so I know. Let's save. Oops, we weren't supposed to do that. Let's do this again. So it exported it as a Rhino file, which is fine. I'll just go back and delete it. Export selected. Site analysis, Illustrator. Right down here where it says save as type, I'm going to click on this pull down. And you'll notice that we have an option to save this as an Adobe Illustrator file. So I'll go ahead and click here and I'll hit save. And we're going to leave this just all this information as is. So I'll hit OK. And then I will go and locate that Illustrator file. Where is it? Oh, it's right there. And then I'll go ahead and open it up. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And there's my Illustrator file. So now the first thing I'm going to do is set up my paper size. I don't like this, so let's go ahead and hide the bar. I also go to Windows and use the Essential Classic workspace. But I'm going to come up here to Document Setup. I'm going to go to Edit Artboard, and I'm going to change my artboard. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm in points. Let me hit the escape a couple times. Let's go up to File, Document Setup, because right now we're in points and we want to be in inches because I don't understand size in points. So we'll click on inches. We'll hit OK. And now we'll do it again. Document Setup, Edit Artboard. And we're going to change the width to 17 inches because we're going to print this on an 11 by 17. So I'll hit Enter. There we go. I can hit the escape key or just hit the selection tool. All right. And now what I'll do is I'll select this entire object and go ahead and move this. And holding down the Shift key, I'm going to click and drag this out and make this kind of as big as I can. Just like that. Oops. I'm going to select the whole thing again, and I'm going to change the line weight. So I like to go thin. So either 0.25 or 0.5. Let's go with the 0.25. And then the lines themselves, we're going to double click over here where you have the fill and the stroke. So again, the box is the stroke, which is the same thing as saying the line. So what color is the line? This box that's white right now, this is the fill. So like, do we want to fill anything in? So right now we're leaving that as is, but I'm going to double click over here in this square within the square. Double click, and that's going to allow me to change the color. Okay. So the CMYK, I always go 60, 40, 40, 100. That's considered a true black. We'll hit OK. And there we have our model. Right. Now, if I remember correctly, there's my site. Right. There's the weird shaped buildings. Okay. So that's all I could have just given you this file, right? But I really want you guys to learn how you go about making these files, so that in future studios or just future diagrams, things like that, you know what the process is. It's not that difficult of a process. You just have to kind of get the hang of it a little bit, understand it a little bit, but it's not that complicated, right? And I guarantee you, you show this to anyone else and it looks amazing and it looks like you spent days creating this thing, right? Unfortunately, I know the truth. So I know that this probably only took you an hour. So we're going to go ahead and give you more work to do. So the goal here is to analyze the area around our site. We are going to design a building. This building, whatever it is we design, is going to affect the community. It's going to affect everything that is around that. In addition to that, we also want to allow the community to affect the design, right? So what I need to do is analyze the neighborhood. What's around me? Are there schools? Where are the schools? Where's the closest school? Are there a ton of residential buildings? Where? Are there commercial buildings? Are there malls? Are there shopping centers? Are there, movie theaters? Are there daycares? Are there clinics? What's around us, right? And where are they located? Because that's going to start to determine what we add inside of the building, right? Maybe there are no daycares. Maybe there are no clinics. Maybe there's no space for teenage youth, which, by the way, there's never any space for teenage youth. So maybe we look at this entire area and we say, hey, you know what? We really want to provide some space for teenagers. What that looks like, I don't know. Skate parks, maybe? Maybe it's just hanging out space because we analyzed the site and we realized there's no place to actually hang out. There's no green space, right? I mean, that's not entirely true. We have a park, but it's a park and maybe we're looking for something more intimate of a residential space. And so maybe in my design, I want to integrate a lot more green space because through this site analysis, I realized that there is no green space. There is no space for people to relax, right? So as tedious as it is to analyze the site, it's super important. In addition to that, through analyzing the site, we can begin to say, you know what? There's a lot of traffic over here. All of these buildings here are commercial buildings, which means that if I'm going to do housing, I probably don't want to put housing on this side and commercial over here, right? I'm probably going to want to put more of the commercial, more public stuff along Broadway instead of Euclid. But we don't know that until we analyze this site, okay? So what we're going to do is analyze the site and we're going to color code every building. I know that doesn't sound fun, or maybe it does sound fun, but it's going to be tedious, but that's really how we analyze and understand the site. So our goal is to color every single building. And the way we're going to do that is by going to Google Maps and literally doing the street view and going down these streets and seeing what is that building? What is that building? What is that building? What is that building? Right? Now, some of the stuff you're not going to know, you're not going to be able to figure out. So we make educated guesses. Okay. We make these educated guesses of what's around, or what these buildings are. And that's okay to make these educated guesses as well. Okay. Just as long as they are educated guesses and not just like, sure, this is what it could be. Okay. Now, we also don't want 20 different colors in here. We want to categorize them down to maybe a maximum of 5 colors: residential, public, retail, civic, and then, whatever else you see fit. Okay. So we're going to start off with 5 colors. Now, how you define that is entirely up to you. It's your analysis. Okay. The other thing too is that we're all going to analyze the site differently because we have different interpretations and understanding of how the world works and what things are. Some are going to be very straightforward, but other things are going to be questionable, right? And that's where your perspective comes into play. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually pick my color scheme. I am going to go to, nope, let's go back online. Now there's 2 very good websites. There's Coolers, right? Coolers.co. And then there's Adobe Colors, which we all have an account with because we're using Adobe Illustrator. Okay. Both of these are color generators. Sure, yes, yes, yes. Okay. We're going to start off with 5 colors. So we need to pick our colors. Now, some of us prefer and we're really good at picking colors. Other of us are not. And some of us just don't want to spend the time. So Under coolers, we can go to explore trending palettes, or the same thing under Adobe colors. Okay, we could go to trends. You can create new colors, you could explore, you could look at the trends that are going on, you could look at libraries. Okay, so like these are the color schemes, and it tells you, it shows you these colors. So if we go to libraries, now let's go, just because I don't want to do all the sign-in stuff, we'll go into coolers, right? But the same thing exists in Adobe. But we have these colors. So I can take a look at the color scheme and say, oh, I like this color, right? Or I like this palette. I can even make changes, and I can say, you know what, I like this palette, but I don't like that blue. I actually like this red. Okay. So what you want to do is figure out the colors that you like. Now, we want the colors to be different because, or to let's say, I want the colors to have some contrast. So for example, this color palette here is not going to work when I'm looking at the entire model, right? In Illustrator, the file and the drawing itself is already so busy. And if the colors are just slightly off, I'm not going to know what is retail and what's residential. So I want the colors to really vary and be different. Okay. But once I find the 5 colors that I like, I'm going to write the hex number down. So for example, let's say, here, let's stick with this one. I'm going to write down FB 8500. I'll go ahead and write down FFB 703, and so on. We'll go ahead and stick with these 3, 023047. Okay, these are known as hex codes, okay, because they're 6-digit codes that are universal throughout a lot of softwares. And so we can go ahead and write these numbers down. We're going to go into Illustrator. And this is where we're going to color each building. Okay. Now, in order to color a building, what we need to do is select everything. So Control A to select everything, or you can do a cross window. We're going to go up to Object, and we're going to go to Live Paint and Make. Okay. We're going to hit Continue. And when you see these kind of stars inside the grip points right there, that means that it did it. What I'm going to do next is look for the Live Paint button, and I always forget where the location of that thing is. There we go. So this is the button. The shortcut is the letter K, but you should find where it lives, Live Paint Bucket. Okay. And then I'm going to come over here, and when I double click inside the fill, this is where I'm going to add that hex number. So I'm going to type in FB 8500 with the tab key, and there's that color orange that I chose. I'll hit OK. Right. And now I can go ahead and say, go ahead and pick or assign the color to the building. Okay. Now, before you do this, you should have an understanding of what color represents what. So I could say, you know what, orange is going to represent commercial, red is going to represent residential, and blue is going to represent civic. Okay. So have an idea, have a legend for yourself of what color represents what building. Then I'm going to go into Google Maps. Here, let's go to our site. Let's zoom into our site here. And let's go back to Google Maps. Where is it? There's our site. Okay. And it looks to me like all of these buildings to the south are apartments, right? Residential. Now we can also break up residential as single family residential or multifamily residential. So single family residential there's very little single family residential in this area, by the way, which is something to think about. Single family residential is essentially a house, right? One family per property. Multifamily is essentially apartment complexes. Okay. So here I could say, you know what, the color orange is going to represent multifamily housing. And it looks like this is that. Is that outdoor sports store? No, that looks like someone's doing a business outside of their house there, right? Which is something good to know. Something good to know that, you know, on the other side of the alley, someone's doing a business outside their house, right? Here's a single family residence. This is really interesting, right? We actually have a single family home right next to our house and right next to our property. So we might not want to put the most loudest programs, right? Something that's going to create the most noise on this side of the property. These neighbors are going to hate us, right? So let's just say that all these buildings here are multifamily housing. So let's go back to Adobe, to Illustrator. And I'm going to go ahead and paint that, 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 and so on, right? Until you got into where you need to. Now notice I'm only painting the tops, okay? Let's go ahead and add another one. And this one I'm going to do is FFB 703. That's a gold. So maybe I say, you know what, I noticed that there's a lot of schools. So let's go ahead and paint these. I'm not sure what happened here. I think I'm missing a line right there, but let's leave that as is. Something like that. Okay. So you're going to go ahead and do that for the entire site, for all of the buildings. Once you have all of that done, what we need to do, so let's say we've colored every building on our site. What we're going to do is change the colors or add the colors to the walls. Now the walls are going to be different, okay? Just because we need to show, if I change every color, oops, to the eyedropper. Using the eyedropper will match a color, so I could click over here, and then I'll come back to my live paint bucket, and then I'll go ahead and click, right? So watch what happens. You see what happens when my building is all the same color? It starts to look really flat. So what I would like to do is undo. Come on. Okay. So I'll pick my color, and then I'll come over here and I'll double click. Okay. And we're going to create a lighter shade of orange and a darker shade of orange. Now the darker shade is going to be kind of where there's going to be more shadows. And then the lighter shade is where we imagine the sun being hit from. So if we come out, okay, I'm going to say that, this is north, which means this is east, south, and west. The sun rises on the east, comes across, and sets on the west. So really, we could say that the sun is hitting on one side and not on the other side. So let's assume that all of the faces of the walls that are facing us is where the sun is located. So that means that those walls are going to get a lighter shade of orange, while the other walls are going to get a darker shade of orange. So I'm going to come over here, double click, and we're going to adjust the colors. Usually it's in this B range, okay? So right now it's at 98. I'm gonna go, I don't know, let's remove 20. So that goes 78. Let's go 75. Oops. So 75 goes darker. Okay, so I'll hit OK. And now I'll go ahead and hit the paint bucket. And every face is gonna go darker. And then we'll go ahead and go back. double click. Now, if I want to go lighter, this becomes tricky. So let's go 100, right? I can go lighter, but it's not going to change a whole lot there. Sometimes, we could change some of these numbers. No, we don't want to do that. Usually the K goes. So what we can do is just come over here and move this to the left, right? If you can't adjust any of these numbers, it's because you're already on the edge there. Okay. So at that point, we're just moving, going around, going along here and adjusting these numbers, right? And notice what's happening too. Look at the S. So that means that maybe if all we have to do is adjust the S as well, right? So get a lighter shade, something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and adjust the paint bucket. And there you go. And so now we have our blocks. Okay. And so when you're done with this, we should have a sea of colors. And these buildings are gonna they're gonna look much more three-dimensional. Now, to finish this off, we do need a legend. We need to know what does orange look like. So I'll come over here, click there. And I'm just gonna create a rectangle and just place it just like that. Create a text and place it right here. And I'm just gonna type in multi-family residential. We can select this. We could change the font type here, to something that you like. I don't like any of these, but you can, you could adjust all that right over here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and place that in there. And there we have it. Now you're probably going to want to add a color specific to the site as well. Okay. And then also use this as an opportunity to make any diagrammatical notes. So in other words, you can have a legend off on the side here that is separate from your colors. And you could say interesting facts. There are no donut shops, right? There are no daycares. Things that you find really interesting as you're studying and you're looking at the site and you're saying, wait a minute, it's a bit weird that within walking distance, there's no grocery stores. Like, where are people getting their groceries from? So make a note of that, right? You can have bullet points to the left here that make certain notes. If there's certain things on the site that you want to call out and you say, you know what, we actually have a bus stop. I don't know if this is true or not. We actually have a bus stop right here. I can come in and draw a circle, right? And then have a legend for it over here. Everything that's a circle is a bus stop. Okay. This is your diagram. This diagram is going to inform your design, and it is definitely going to be in your final presentation. And if you put this project in a future portfolio, the site analysis is going to make it to that portfolio. Okay. So make sure you take the time to create it, and that it is well documented and it's well thought out. And it is a true kind of analysis of the site. Okay. You're going to save this as a PDF file. Actually, save it, consistently save your file. But then when you're done, if you're on a PC, you're going to print this as an 11 by 17. If you're on a Mac, you're going to export this as a PDF, okay, and then print it directly as a PDF file. Okay. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Good luck, everyone.